Hi, my name is Troy. I work for Ice Age, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your team and just get ready with Ice Age, iScore, sign up, and VMs all in one place. Alright, so firstly, we're going to start by making a user. To do this, we're going to go to signup.iceage.org, then press Register Blue. Now fill out your information. Alright, once your account gets created, check your email inbox. Now click on the link. It will say account activated, please log in. Usually I like to wait a second before I log in just to wait for the AD user to get created so you can log into all of the Ice Age services. Alright, once you're on this dashboard, what you're going to want to do is create a new team if you don't have one already. So if you're the team leader, you can press create team. And now we're going to call this, I don't know, test team. And then you're going to also want to check looking for members right here so that other people can join your team. Once enough people have signed up and you're happy with your team size, all your friends are on there, you're going to want to uncheck this looking for members button and then click submit. And now if you go back to sign up, then you can see looking for members is false. Now click on competition information. I'm going to save this link to the blue drive for later. Next up, we're going to want to go check out our VMs. We're going to go to vcenter.iceage.org. Now log in with the same credentials that you used to make your account on signup. Now continue to check all of these little tick boxes until you get down. When you first go, it'll look like this. And now we can see the VMs. So I'll show you how to open the VMs. I'm in the new view right now. You can also switch to the classic view like this. Either way, you're going to want to click on the machine, and then it should say Web Console, and you just click OK. Now I'll log into CDC. The password is always CDC. And as you can see, our Ubuntu box works just fine. I'll show you now how to log into a Windows box. We'll look at AD. I'm going to press this Control-Alt-Delete button up here. And then this password is also CDC. And there you go. Windows Server and Server Manager is starting up. Alright, next up, let's take a look at iScore. Go to iscore.iceage.org. Now log in with those same credentials. Alright, first, the scoreboard. This shows you how many points your team and all of the other teams have. This only really starts to matter once competition has begun because everyone starts out with the same amount of points. Next up is the dashboard. This is where you can see all of the things you can interact with. including your team information, recent scores, anomalies, flags, intrusion reports, and documentation. We'll get into those later. Here's the service scanner. Click on your team box, and you can see all of the errors here, showing you which services are down. Those are all in red. The green services are up. As you can see, even though I just made this team, a lot of services are already up. This is because they've been pre-configured for you. All of these red services that say things like authentication failed or timed out need something else. Authentication failed usually means that it needs a user to work correctly that hasn't been added to the Active Directory yet. These other errors are usually specific to the service that you're working with. If you ever get impatient, you can just press Run On Demand Scan. Oh, this is my team. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, on your team, you'll be able to press the Run On Demand Scan button, so you don't have to wait every 5 minutes for the service scanner to automatically check your services. So if you fix, for example, AD/RDP, you can test it immediately. Next up is TSI, or Team Specific Info. This includes your passwords, dates of birth, and social security numbers, optionally, depending on the scenario. You can see them by hovering your mouse over them. Another important part of the cyber defense competition is flags. We use these to determine if your machine has been compromised by attackers. There's some flags that you have to plant beforehand that the hackers need to read. Those are the blue flags. When you go to Download Flags and press Download Flags, you can now see all of the flags you need to plant in your machines. It'll tell you where to plant these flags, by the way. So this one needs to be on the code box at the directory etc. This one, C, Windows System 32. If you go down to Team Info here, you can see your team name, organization, and other information. Please change your logo and team name. We don't want to announce that CDC Team 7 has placed. That's boring. Alright, finally, the score report. This shows you all of the information you need to know about your team, including service uptime, blue flags, red flags, and other categories here of how many points you've scored. As you can see, because this competition hasn't started yet, I haven't scored anything besides the flag points, which are given to you at the beginning and only can be taken away. Alright, let's go back to that Google Drive. This here is the VPN file. If you're off campus or competing virtually, you need to download this bluevpn.ovpn file here, and then install it with OpenVPN. This gives you access to the vsphere.iceage.org and all of the other services we have. Next up, we have our scenario. The scenario changes each time there's a new competition. This one is for Iowa State 2 2025. In this table of contents, we can see code server, Git server, AD, IRC, ENV, website, all of the machines, as well as some notes. Here's a little blurb about what the competition is like and what your quote-unquote scenario is. In this competition, we are helping out the Core Development Collective launch version 1.0 of their software. Here in servers is provided an easy hostname and octet table that you can use to easily get to your machines via SSH. This is an example of a single machine write-up. So this is AD. We can see the default username, password, operating system, and other information, as well as the required access. We'll get into that later. Here are the flags that were mentioned earlier. As you can see, the hackers need to either add a user to the domain or plant a flag at C users administrator, whereas the defenders, that's you guys, need to go into C Windows System 32 and plant that flag that you downloaded earlier. Next up is the user info Excel sheet. There's two different types of users in this competition, TSI and non-TSI. Non-TSI users have shared password with everyone. However, they also have low permissions. So as long as you manage your permissions correctly, it won't matter that a few passwords got leaked. Just make sure to configure your systems well. There's also different roles. This group is the IT administrators, the project managers, then the user support, and contributors. Different roles need different permissions, and those are specified in the scenario. You can get these TSI passwords from the earlier mentioned TSI portion. Alright, next up, let's talk about scoring points. There's quite a few ways to score points here. They were mentioned here in the score report earlier, but let's go through them step by step. Firstly, the service scanner. If your service is up, it turns green here, and every green service gives you a certain amount of points. The way that uptime works is that you get 100 points if all of your services are up and 0 when they're empty. However, if you go the first portion with 100% of your services up and the next portion with 0, it averages it out to 50. So it basically just takes an average of all of your service scan results. The service scanner runs every 5 minutes during the competition and takes your score there. But service scanner is only 20% of your points. The other 20% that's involved in usability is called usability. And this is, as you can see, there's no usability scores yet because the competition has not started, but usually there's 2 or 3 depending on the size of the competition, and they're just manual checks by green team members who act as the users of this scenario. And their goal is to try to use your services in the way that the scenario specifies. So for example, if an IT administrator needs to have SSH access on a certain machine, that might be one of your usability scores that comes in. So something I would recommend if you want to increase your usability scores, because competition after competition, it seems like this is a place that most teams struggle, is if you've got time, manually test out all of the things you can think of that we could possibly need to use, such as websites, services, etc. Alright, let's talk about flags now. This is a part of your security score. In the dashboard, we can see all of the flags for blue and red team. Again, red team's goal is to plant these flags, and blue team's goal is to defend these flags that they plant before the competition. If you lose a flag, it'll turn from green to red. And what you want to do is if you lose a flag, click on it and you can file a report to get up to 50% of your points back on that stolen flag. However, you need to explain how you lost the flag, or at least how you think you lost the flag. So you got to do some digging in your machine to do that. Alright. Next up is anomalies. Anomalies are really fun mini challenges that happen only during the competition. These are worth 15% of your score. Anomalies are great because they give you a kind of a break between watching your computer monitor waiting for a hacker, so you can earn some bonus points. I highly recommend doing anomalies, even though most of them are optional. Alright, we got documentation now. There's 3 types of documentation. The first is your green team documentation, and that can be found in the blue drive, example green team documentation. Green team documentation is kind of like your user's manual. So, for example, in this scenario, they had a website that was a hosting company. So they gave information, this team did step by step of how to use this hosting company website, how to log into the website, etc. So that's kind of what you want your green team manual to be, something that a person with little to no technical experience can follow. Lots of images are great because a lot of people like the visual learners and are visual learners, and it's hard to mess up a direct screenshot. So that's worth 5% of your score. The other counterpart to that is the white team documentation, and this is like your technical documentation. So you want to include things like network tables, network maps like this, LAN rules, and then things you did to improve the security of your machines, as well as your applications, if you did anything to modify a website or custom application. And then I would also recommend going through machine by machine and just writing down things that you secured or services that you set up. Basically, anything you did to make the services more usable or less vulnerable is all fair game for your white team documentation. You want this one and also the green documentation to be very professional. That's another good thing to keep in mind. And then both of those are due, it makes up a combined 10%. They're due before the competition starts. You can submit them up to an hour late, but you get a 50% penalty unless you're having network issues, which do happen occasionally, in which you can just reach out to one of the white team members and we will help you through it. All right. Finally, for documentation, we have the intrusion reports. Usually, like the service scanners, or not service scanners, usability, there will be 2 or 3 of these throughout the competition. And your goal is to go back through your machines and see if anyone hacked into them or logged in through a user you didn't know about. Because again, any login is not necessarily a hacker, it could easily be the green team as well. So you have to find any sort of proof that a hacker got into your machine if you lost a flag. Now, if you didn't lose a flag, red team is still trying to log into your machine, so see if they try to log into it with default credentials or any sorts of possible other ways or scripts that they've used to try to get into your machine. All of that is good things to put on your intrusion reports, even if you didn't get hacked. They basically just want to see, can you show us proof that you did not get hacked, or did in the case of losing a flag? How did you get hacked in that case? And then your last 10% comes from your red evaluation. And the red evaluation is how red team thinks that you did as a team. Red team is pretty harsh on this one, and if they suspect that you've just been whack-a-moling, quote-unquote, as in, if they log in, then you shut their session down as fast as possible, you're going to lose a lot of points on that. If you're doing things that are against the rules, like banning IPs, you're also going to lose some points in the red team evaluation. It's kind of just a catch-all for if red team thinks that you secured your system well, you do well in the score. If you didn't secure your system very well, or if you were, making memes, making fun of red team, stuff like that, then they will take away from your score. All right. Last part of this is the rules. If you're interested in learning more about what you can and cannot do, or if you have a question like, hey, can I use this service? More than likely, something similar is in the rules. So to find it, you can go to docs.iceage.org/cdc/current. And this will take you to the rules. So you can see your competition scoring guide. We already went over this. Competition rules for every team, and it also will tell you how to set things up. And that's the change log. Alright, that's all for me today, except for a few more hints. If you're a new team, I would definitely recommend that you stick around and hear these, and if you're a veteran team, maybe you'll hear something that you haven't thought of before. So, as you can see from the scoring weight, not a whole lot actually has to do directly with security. You see, the point of this is that you want both a secure and usable server, because an insecure server is most likely an unusable server. It also encourages teams to spend time setting up the usability because of how much credit is given to it. If I pull up the score report. So service uptime and usability both have a lot of scores. Also anomalies. If you can spare an extra person to just sit around and do anomalies competition day, that's also very beneficial to your team because that's an extra 15% of points that you can get. Also, make sure to write all of your documentation. These are easy points. Many teams do well in their documentation if they spend a good amount of time on them. And yeah, just make sure that you get those basics down, those easy points, and you can do well in the competition even if you know little about security. If you'd like to learn more about security, I wouldn't recommend starting with just installing Kali Linux. If you know a thing or two and you're willing to learn and you have extra time, yeah, Kali Linux is great, but in my experience, you can find a lot more vulnerabilities by just poking around the machine itself than trying to use Kali Linux or another tool to pen test it. So if you've heard of Kali Linux or Parrot Security and you've got a little bit of knowledge about cybersecurity, I would recommend still starting with going through your machine as normal, and then afterwards doing some research with Kali Linux, Nmap, those kinds of tools to see if you're missing something, and then you can trace it back to the source on the original machine. Finally, as far as services go, just make sure that, again, as I mentioned earlier, make sure that your services are actually usable by a person and not just showing green on the scanner. It's not the end of the world if you can't get one service to work. It might not even show up in the green checks, but if you can get most of your services working, you will earn a lot of points there, and that's, again, a portion that most teams usually struggle with, mostly due to time constraints and also just different priorities. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and good luck on the competition.